Welcome to the first ever episode of Buffalo Sports Banter. I'm Ben Shoop, and with me is my good friend Hunter Lober Cummins. A new podcast, going to be starting this up every week, every Friday. It's going to be dropping, brought to you by Built in Buffalo. So thanks for joining us, Hunter. I'm going to let you introduce yourself real quick, let everybody know where they can find you, what you like, what you're doing, and everything like that.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Hunter Lober Cummins. Two last names. HLC is what I often go by, so I might change that up in the little name board there, maybe going forward. Yeah, born and raised in Orchard Park, lifelong Buffalo sports fan. Happy to be here. Just love to talk sports, even some banter, as that's what our title is, of course. Yeah, I'm a senior over at Canisius College. In fact, I'm in my second last day, to be honest. Graduate in about a week and a couple days later. So really happy to be moving along there. I'm in the sports media industry. I'm actually an intern with Channel 4 WIVB as a sports anchor. Well, not for them, of course, but that's what I'd be gearing myself towards. Um, and yeah, so I'm really happy to be here. And I have, of course, on all the main socials. My Instagram is my full name, all lowercase, no spaces. My Twitter is Hunter, and then I believe it is two underscores, the letters LC, and those would be my two main ones. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, quick overview of what we're going to be doing on this podcast. Obviously, it's pretty apparent we're going to be talking about Buffalo sports. But first half of every episode, we're going to be talking about the current sports. So like today, we'll be talking about the schedule release for the Bills. We're talking about the NHL lottery, just because that happened this past Monday. So it's going to be different things each week. It's probably going to be about 30-minute episodes, 40-minute episodes. And then at the end, though, it's gonna be about 5 to 15 minutes. We're gonna talk about some form of Buffalo sports history. Because one, I know Hunter, you're a big sports history buff. I myself am not as big as you, but I definitely want to get into it more. I like hearing about the history, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people that might be listening have not heard a lot of the stuff we'll talk about, especially even today. But today we're going to start it off. We're going to get into the schedule right away, and then we'll get into the draft lottery for the NHL. But it just dropped about an hour ago officially. I mean, we've kind of known for a little bit today, just certain games, everything like that. But here's the schedule rundown. Then we'll get into certain games. I'll ask you, Hunter, which one stands out to you the most. First, though, we start off with a Monday night football game against the Jets in New Jersey. Aaron Rodgers' first game. That's week 1. Week 2 is the home opener for the Bills against the Raiders. That's a 1:00 game on September 17th. Week after that is also, I believe that's on the road. Yep, on the road against the Washington Commanders. Also a 1:00 game. And then next week, when we get into October, that is a 1:00 game again against Miami. Not a lot of 1:00 games, as you'll see, at least in Buffalo and overall, but that's the second one of the year. And actually, I believe that's actually the only. Yes, that is the last home game that is a 1:00 game, besides the Patriots on December 31st, which I think could be flexed, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. But week 5, Jacksonville, that's the London game, 9:30 a.m. for those East Coasts. That's technically a home game. Would be our 9th home game, but it's obviously away in London. Week after that, we get Sunday night football in Buffalo. The New York Giants are coming up to Orchard Park, playing Stable versus McDermott, right? Old offensive coordinator. Then week 7, we're going to New England. The Bills are going to New England, 1:00 game on October 22nd. Then 4 days later, Bills are back home in Orchard Park, a Thursday night football game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that one's 8:15 start, October 26th. And then Sunday the 5th is Sunday night football. They're going to Cincinnati to play the Bengals, another night game. Obviously, we all know what happened last year when we played them in the regular season. Hopefully this year everything goes smoothly. But that's week 9. Week 10, we got the Broncos coming to Buffalo, to Orchard Park. I believe that is a Sunday night football. No, Monday
Monday.
night game. Monday night game. That is Denver coming here 8:15. That is November 13th. Week after that, week 11, the Jets are coming to Buffalo on November 19th. That is a 4:25 game. 4:25, not a 1 o'clock game. 4:25. Another 4 o'clock game the week after. Actually, my birthday, November 26th. The Eagles are hosting the Bills, so we're going to Philadelphia. Week 13 is the bye week, late bye week. We'll get into that in a second, but late bye week for first time, I believe, in a while for the Bills. And then week 14 is at Kansas City, 4:25 game, another 4 o'clock game. I mean, it's kind of crazy how many for ones we've obviously had a lot of primetime games the past few years, a lot of 1 o'clock games, not too many 4 o'clock games. But that's not the last one. Week after that, week 15, Dallas in Buffalo, 4:25. A 4:25 game in Buffalo. That's the second one this year, which is very shocking. Usually, if it's in Buffalo, it's automatically 1 o'clock game. Then week 16, it says 8 o'clock. It's a Saturday game, I believe, the 23rd of December against the Chargers in LA. It's only on Peacock, which we'll also get to when we're going over this, but only on Peacock. That's the Chargers. Week 17, 1 o'clock game, New Year's Eve. I don't know if this one can be flexed, but New England is coming to Buffalo New Year's Eve at 1 o'clock. Then to finish it off, week 18 is the Miami Dolphins at Miami. No official date yet. That's what it says on the schedule, to be determined. Could be Saturday, could be Sunday. Who knows? Just because, or it could even be a Monday. I don't remember if they have Monday games week 18. But it could be a Monday game depending on what they decide, depending on how close the division is. So that's the overall schedule. Obviously, a lot to take in. I mean, a lot of things to look at. But I'm just going to ask you straight up, what one or two games really stand out to you the most when you're looking at the schedule?
Absolutely. If I had to pick those options, I would have to say the first one, and they're actually both for me going to be in the later quadrant. Number one is going to be that Thanksgiving weekend game against the current runners-up of the league, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm really excited to see how that one plays out. I know the last matchup we had, it was in Orchard Park. I know the Eagles won by, I believe, more than one score. From what I remember, that was a very rainy game, and Miles Sanders had himself a day, if I'm not mistaken, with that one. So I'd like to see how we match up 4 years later. I'm pretty confident it should be a one-score game, I would hope. We'll see. Of course, Jalen Hurts is very talented, got paid the big bucks just recently. Talking about some of the dates and times, I don't love that, though, for that date and time, because to me at least, I don't know. After Thanksgiving, I'm looking just to kind of sit back and chillax on that Sunday, really not worry about a ton of things. And being that's also a 4:25 game, you'll go through the 1 o'clock slate as a Bills fan with that maybe a little pit in your stomach. So I really don't love the placement of that game. And also, I was considering maybe getting out to that one, but have some family Thanksgiving obligations here in Buffalo, so might be a little tight getting out there that Sunday, but that's all right. But so would I like to see a different date and time, but that's okay. And then number two is what seems like the perennial matchup now that we've had pretty decent fortunes with the last 2 years in the regular season, of course, and that's going out to Arrowhead to play the Kansas City Chiefs. That one, Sunday, December 10th at 4:25. That automatically reminds me of that Buccaneers game 2 seasons ago versus Tom Brady. I want to say that was the same weekend, that mid-December 4:25 slot versus an elite team. Of course, Brady made that team elite. So hopefully that same result doesn't happen. Of course, that was an overtime loss on the Brashad Perriman game-winning touchdown there, but that's behind us. Can we make it 3 wins in a row in the regular season? That would be pretty impressive if we are able to do that. And by that point, that you would assume that both of those teams are going to be going into that game with, and let's see, 18, 17, 16, 14. That's week 14. So, I mean, what could you say going into that game? Maybe, so you'd have 13 games total played, like 10-3, 11-2 for both teams going into that game. That would be pretty impressive. So those would be my 2 games, the best games to look at. And of course, that's the Super Bowl matchup when you put those 2 teams together of this past season.
Yeah, I mean it's really this really is a tough schedule, and that stretch alone, like that you were talking about, that is a tough stretch from week really 11. I mean, you could even go all the way back to week 9, but week 11 to week 15, even 16 is rough. I mean, that bye week is huge in week 13. You have the Jets, then you have Eagles, the bye week, then Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers. Like that's a tough stretch there, down, especially towards the end of the year. And only two of them are at home. So 2 out of the 4 or 5 games are at home. 3 of them are on the road. So that's a tough schedule. It could really change a lot, especially with the division, because then week 17 and 18 are the Patriots and Dolphins. So that could really change a lot. For me, the one game that really jumps off the page to me, and it might not be one that jumps off the page to anybody else, but it's that Buccaneers Thursday night game, solely because I'm shocked that it is a night game. I wouldn't, if you told me about the schedule, if they'd probably be probably the last team I would have expected the Bills to play on Thursday night or in a primetime game. Maybe the Commanders were another team that I'd be shocked, but I am very shocked to see that. I thought at least they would put one of the Dolphins games. Obviously, it still can week 18 become a primetime game, but I thought they'd for sure have one of those. And I mean, it really is a shocking thing to see that Bucks game. So that's one that stands out to me the most. That one should be. I mean, I think to a lot of people that should be a win for them. That should. I mean, you cannot drop that type of game, especially with the stretch after that, where you have Cincy, Denver, and then the stretch I just talked about right after that. Like that is must win week 8. Then the other game that really stands out, and it might just be the Buffalo. You know, obviously, if you're not a Buffalo guy, you wouldn't be. This wouldn't stand out to you, but it is the New York Giants coming here on Sunday Night Football. I mean that game's going to be not fun to watch, dude. Right? It's going to be Dable versus McDermott, Dorsey versus I'm blanking on who the offense coordinator is there, but it's going to be Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, like talent everywhere. Two teams that know each other decent amount just because of the Dable connection over here in Buffalo. So that's a game that I'm really excited about. What do you think about those two games? Are you kind of in the same boat? What do you think? Are you more excited about the Bucks game than I am, or just kind of the same?
Well, I would have to say, speaking about the Bucks, and then 2 weeks later, the Broncos. I did not have those pinned as primetime games for sure. In fact, I'm very surprised to see that those are both prime times sacrificed, such as Dallas. Well, I mean, I guess that's a tricky one if you consider 425. For us, that's definitely a different scene. But that's not going to be as of course prime time notable as an 8:15 start. Um, but yeah, like you said, you got to think with the Buccaneers not having Brady anymore. In fact, who are we looking at to be that starting quarterback? Is that Kyle Trask
Probably Baker. I think
or
Baker.
Baker, as they did sign? Right. I guess that could be a training camp battle. Um, but yeah, you with that kind of looking towards that, you'd have to think that'll be a win as well as Denver if it's going to be anything like last season. I don't see them doing as poorly as they did, but still, and all the more reason because they're on national television to play to your best ability to make sure that there's no slip ups or what I would consider an embarrassment versus both of those teams. The Giants, that'll be a great atmosphere. Brian Dable comes home literally as he's also a Buffalo native, not just where he formerly coached. That'll be a really good matchup there. Um, other things that stand out to me, I would say, going back to those time slots, I had put this out on my social media. The first thing that caught my eye was 425 kickoffs in a row. To a
Yep.
lifelong Buffalo native and fan, that is unheard of. As I put it again on Twitter and Instagram, that used to be I grew up, we both grew up. That was like Tom Brady, Randy Moss, Patriots era. That's the only excuse or reasoning for having being an Eastern team not needing that 425 start. To have 4 of them in a row, and I don't even know if the Patriots even had 4 in a row back in that
I
era.
don't think so. Yeah,
I'd have
I
to
don't
do
think so.
some homework on that. But and the fact that 2 of them are at home. I know we had the Jet game, um, not this past season, but the season before was a 425 start at home. That was like the first time in a very long time, the only one I really remember. So to now have this be a regular thing, that's pretty cool to see. It shows me that we've kind of grown up almost as an organization.
Well, I
Definitely.
will say that stretch from week 8 all the way till week 16, there's not a single 1 o'clock game, which again, like you said, that's unheard of. And even if you get rid of week 7, then you go from week 5 all the way till week 16, where there's 1 o'clock game, and it's that Patriots game in week 7. But you got 8:15, 8:20, 8:15, 4, 4, 4, 4, 8 o'clock. Like that is crazy to, at least for us. I know obviously maybe some other fans have seen that happen before, but for us, like we're just kind of, we're still a little bit new to this whole winning thing.
Hmm.
Like we still don't know how to act all the time. We still don't know how to do everything because we're not used to it. We weren't alive during the 90s. We weren't able to see those teams. But it's fun now. It's cool now. I know. I mean, I'm still a big fan of the 1 o'clock games. Just I think like you, it's just that nostalgia type thing where it's,
Hmm.
you're waking up on Sunday, you're ready to go at 8, 9 in the morning, and you're getting over there early to get to miss the traffic and everything. So it is going to take a little bit of getting used to. I do know a lot of people are upset about not as many 1 o'clock games. Maybe then they'll fix that next year and just give a lot of 1 o'clock games, at least at home. But yeah, I mean it'll definitely be a different year. It'll be a crazy year, one like we've never seen when it comes to the schedule. But before we move on to the lottery, let's just go over the games real quick. We'll go over the games and we'll end up having our record at the end. So we'll start with week 1. Are you going win or loss? Jets away Monday Night Football.
So for this, that was the one other game I wanted to briefly touch on. Um, this reminds me of, if you can remember back to that Monday night opener that was, I believe, might have been a part of a doubleheader in New England in 2009 when it was the AFL throwback jersey year, and we were up, 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 and then I think something silly. I believe a Leotis McKelvin muff turned the fortunes for us, and of course the Brady Pats went to win that one, but. AFC East opponent, season opener. You gotta wait uh, the Sunday and the Thursday to get there. So reminds me of that. But for the prediction, give me a win in New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, is it weird to say that like opening a season, Jets and Bills is just like that's that again, another weird thing. I'm not used to it, but I'm going to win again. Aaron Rodgers is not exactly known to be able to start off hot, at least recently. So I think that it will take him a little bit to get at least acclimated there with the Jets. I mean, I don't even know how much acclimation he needs, considering he has almost all of his weapons from Green Bay over in New Jersey now. But week 2, Raiders coming to Buffalo, home opener. I mean, I'm going to go easy. I think that's a win. I don't think they'll lose the home opener, especially to the Raiders, who were abysmal last year. And still, I don't think they got better. I do not think they got better. I don't think the defense will be able to stop Allen. And I do not think Jimmy G is going to outscore Josh Allen. So I'm going with a win there, too, to start off 2-0.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It'll be Garoppolo coming to town. I would possibly guess for the first time as a starter. Maybe he came. I would assume he came as a Patriots backup. But yeah, win there. That place will be rocking. I like that opponent, not a completely challenging one, and more than 2 possessions for the margin would be great in that one.
Yeah, hopefully. But week 3, we got Washington in Washington. I mean, that's another game where I'm looking at it and I'm saying there's no way they can lose that game if they're going to be serious about being a team again that's contending. If they want to, they got to win those types of games. So I'm going another win to start off 3-0. So that one's easy for me.
I'd fully agree. Not extremely challenging as it stands. I believe we'd be playing Sam Howell under center for Washington. I'm not very terrified of that at all. So I'd have a similar to the Raiders game, probably not extremely on paper, at least challenging of a win.
So we both are starting off 3-0. Week 4, we're at home versus the Dolphins. Now, again, we did obviously lose the first game, or the Bills ended up losing the first game to the Dolphins last year. Different team this year now, again, different team for the Dolphins. They brought in Jalen Ramsey. What do you think about this game? Are they moving to 4-0?
In a much closer battle compared to the last 2 games, I will have them at 1-0. I think that this is one of those teams, the Dolphins are, that the being at home, being in an away factor really plays into the result. I think that it's just one of those games you're much more likely to win at home versus the Dolphins, at least the way it works out for us than you are in South Florida. So I'm going to have this as a win, but much closer, similar to the snow game. Maybe not that close, but much closer than the previous two games to this Dolphins game.
Yeah, I think. I mean, as much as I mean, this one's probably gonna be the closest game, at least in the first half of the season, that I'm gonna be going back and forth on. I do think it will be a win, so I think it will go to 4-0 because I think Josh Allen and the Bills will have in the back of their head remembering what happened last year in Week 3, and they'll say, now you're coming here and you want good weather in Buffalo. We'll give it to you, and we'll still beat you. So I think they'll end up winning, go to 4-0. Although Week 5, Jacksonville in London, I'm going with a loss there. I think it could be one of those games. I like divisional game the week before, a lot of emotion. Then you're traveling to London. I'm not 100% confident that they could get that done, especially with Jacksonville probably staying in London that whole time, so they won't have to travel as much. Obviously, there's still the factor of, Jacksonville's not going to be being able to stay home. They're going to be in hotels, whatever. But I just think it could be one of those trap games. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to prove a lot this year. And I think that Jacksonville team is going to prove a lot this year. So I'm going to go with a loss. I think 4-1 after 5 weeks. What do you think?
I was going back and forth between this one, but I don't I'm very torn actually. I do wonder how much maybe the coaching staff will try to stress what happened in Jacksonville a couple seasons back to make sure that we don't want to repeat that. And if that's still maybe it becomes fresh in the minds for that week. But with the travel involved and the fact that Jags will be acclimated to maybe that time zone, that area, having played the Falcons there the week before, very unfortunately, just like we saw with EJ Manuel and co in London versus the Jags, I'll have it being maybe a last-second field goal loss to Jacksonville.
Yeah, so we're both going the same right now, both 4-1. I mean, I think at least in the beginning, you'll see a lot of similarities with people with whether there's one loss here, one loss there. But then you got the Giants coming to Buffalo. Big game. Who do you got in that one? Dable, his return to Buffalo.
This is going to be really difficult as well. I think this will be a win, but I'll say, and I don't mean to insult him as this will make more sense as I get on with it. But if they had a slightly more talented quarterback than Daniel Jones under center, I might even chalk it up as a loss. But I think we'll be able to contain him enough, and I think that the real task will be Barkley, in my opinion, to work against. But I think given what we see now, I'm going to have that as a close win.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a win as well. I just think that will be another emotional game with it's a primetime game. Dable, like we said, returning. I think people will be amped up, and I think it's another game where I don't see Daniel Jones outscoring Josh Allen. Kind of like how you said, it's just if it was a different quarterback, maybe, but I don't see it happening. And the only way we lose this game, or they lose this game, I think, is if Saquon Barkley runs for like 200 yards on them. If they just can't stop Barkley at all, that's really the only way. But even then, I still could see Josh Allen putting up a couple touchdowns, Diggs getting open. I just think that the difference in skill level is too much to overcome maybe Dable being maybe a little bit smarter of an offensive coach than obviously Dorsey and McDermott combined. So I'm gonna go with a win there to go to 5-1. But then week 7, I'm actually gonna go with a loss to the Patriots. I think that defense is gonna cause some problems this year. I think they're gonna be better than people expect. I still don't think they'll contend for the division, but I just have a feeling that one of the 2 games against the Patriots they're gonna lose. I don't think it'll be week 17. But I do think it's going to be week 7. I think they're going to be 5-2 after week 7. What do you think?
I actually had this one as a win, kind of similar to Vegas and Washington. That kind of one of the less challenging ones, honestly, on the schedule. I know that they were not complete blowouts last season in both matchups, if I'm not mistaken, versus the Pats. But I think we've progressed enough where it should be on paper, at least the way I've described it, similar to those early 2 games, and I think this will be a confident win.
Yeah, I mean that's a game that I could see going either way. But week 8, I don't see going anyway, but a Bills win. I mean, if they lose that game, I think people will be calling for McDermott's head. People will saying the season's over. It'll be a long, long week until that Bengals game. Um, and there'd be a lot of pressure then on that Bengals game. So I'm going win to go to 6-2. Are they going to 7-1 for you, week 8?
As much as I would like that to be the case, I do see going down into Southern Ohio. That'll be probably an emotionally charged game, given what happened last season with DeMar and everything. We didn't get to finish it, but I do think that Cincinnati comes out on top. I think that as much as we want to say like, oh, we're going to find reasons why we could even go 17-0, I don't think that's possible. I mean, it's been done before, 72 Miami, but I do think if you're going to pick a loss, this would be one, and I see some legitimate reasons why. Burrow, Chase, etc. So I'm going to give this to the Bengals as a win for them.
I might have skipped over you real quick on that Bucks game. I'm guessing just a win there for the Bucks for
Yes,
you as well.
no, should not be completely challenging at all there. That's a win.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going with a loss as well for the Bengals. That would, for my schedule, put it at 6-3. I think a lot of people would be worried at that point, even though I do think that's still very good, especially considering the teams that they're playing this year. But then games get crucial, right? They're getting into week 10 after that. Denver is coming to Buffalo. I see that as a win also. So I see 7-3 after week 10. So after 10 weeks, where are you at? And what do you have that Denver game going?
I have that as a certain win as well, and so for me, that would be 8-2.
Okay. So yeah, so we're one game off of each other. I mean, I think this is how a lot of people are gonna see it. I think if it's any worse than 7-3 at week 10, there's a little bit of panic there. Even if it is 7-3, I could still see some panic from fans. Obviously, there's gonna be panic at all times, even if they could be 10-0 and there's still gonna be some worries, right? So 7-3, 8-2, going into week 11, Jets come to Buffalo. Are they sweeping them? I'm gonna go with no. So I think they lose this one. I think they go to 7-4. Do they sweep them to you?
I will have it as a sweep. I don't see us losing to them at home. I know it's not as meaningful to play maybe the Jets at home as it is to play Miami at home, but I do think that we will be able to contain them. Although, here's a question: have we played Brees Hall before? I do not recall when he got injured. If it was before our loss.
I don't
Um,
believe we played Brees Hall.
Okay, so that's going to be quite the factor as he is very talented. We've not been able to face him yet. So I would have that as a very close win. So crazy to say it would be done by that point, but yes, by default, we will be sweeping the Jets the way I see it.
All right, so I'm at 7-4. You're at 9-2. Eagles then in Philadelphia. I'm going with the win. Partly because it's my birthday as well on that day, so I would really hope that they would win on my birthday. But yeah, week 12 in Philly, I'm going with a win. That would put them at 8-4. Big stretch coming up. What do you have them going 10-2?
We don't quite reach double digits in the win column just yet. I think the Eagles have bulked up incredibly well this offseason on both sides of the football. And I think it'll be an entertaining game, great game. But I just see Philadelphia coming out with the win. And that'd be really unfortunate, as it will mean that we lost to them the past two times we played them in the regular season. And of course, we'll have to deal with Philadelphia fans and their stereotypes.
Yeah, and the whole conversation of who's better, right? Who's better fans, who's better everything. I mean, that's a big thing. And Philly, I will say they've got a great fan base. I mean, they're another diehard fan base, just like Buffalo. But I mean, I think we're both always going to go with the Bills Mafia, right? I mean, Bills Mafia is just, I think, a different breed than anybody. Um, but then we have the bye week. So at the bye week, you have them at 9-3. I got them at 8-4. Very close. This is a huge stretch then, right? Week 14 in Kansas City. Are they getting the win? I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to say yes in the regular season at least. I don't understand why it's the regular season only. The Bills can't lose to the Chiefs, at least recently. So I'm going with a yes to move on to 9-4.
Very tough once again, but I think I'm going to have to bring our regular season triumph versus the Chiefs back down to earth. I do think we finally lose in Kansas City. Of course, we lost when they were here the COVID year, but I do think we lose, unfortunately, to the Chiefs here. So that would put them at 9-4, still yearning for that 10th win.
So we're both 9-4 going into Dallas. Actually, Dallas is coming here. Sorry, Dallas here. Week 15, 425 game. I feel like this is a win. And solely because I see Dak Prescott turning the ball over a couple times against the Bills, and I see Diggs and the Diggs versus Diggs matchup. I see Stephon coming out on top there. I see if just down the line, I don't really know. The only question mark I think I'd have is maybe Micah Parsons and that defensive line going up against the Bills' offensive line. But other than that, I don't see an issue there for the Bills. So I'm going to have a win there to go to 10-4.
I would agree. I think this will be a kind of one of those mid-level games, more challenging than those early Vegas Washington games. But of course, you would assume some of those Philly KC style games are more challenging. So I'll have this as an agreeably comfortable win versus Dallas.
All right, so we're both at 10-4. Chargers. This is the Saturday game, only on Peacock, like we've said, December 23rd. I'm gonna go with a loss. It pains me to say it, but I'm gonna go with a loss. They're gonna go to 10-5. So I think loss there before you get into the final two games. What do you think for the Chargers?
I have this one as a win. I think that would bring them to let's see, 11-4 for me. I personally think the Chargers are one of the most overrated teams in the league. I think Brandon Staley is slowly driving that team into the ground with his over analytical approach, and I also think Justin Herbert maybe gets a little bit too much praise. I know that would ruffle a lot of feathers, but we saw the collapse, the uh, historical collapse versus Jacksonville in the playoffs. And so I have this one as a win in SoFi. We go 2-0 in our past two games there in SoFi.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just for the try. I feel like it feels like a trap game. Feels like one of those trap games, right? I mean, there's a couple of those every year, but I do think the Bills are a better team. I just again see it as a little bit of a trap game. Last two games, real quick. Patriots, Week 17. I'm gonna keep it simple with both of these. I'm going with wins at the end of the year to finish it off. I think Patriots easily get it done. I don't think, especially after a Week 7 loss, I think that they would say no, no way we're losing two games to the Patriots. And then yeah, I have them sweeping the Dolphins. I have the Bills sweeping the Dolphins because any Dolphins fan can come at me when we say this, but the stats back it up. Josh Allen owns the Miami Dolphins. I hate to say it. He's 8-2 against them in his career. I believe that's the record. So until otherwise, I'm not hearing anything else. And I think Week 18 will be a huge week for the AFC East. A lot on the line. I just think that they're going to go into Miami and say, we lost in this building last year. No way we're losing it in this year, especially because they can't. I mean, we can't complain about the sun, right? Can't complain about the heat. So quick 2 wins. So that puts my record at 13-5. No, 12-5. So 12-5 is my final prediction. I don't know if that's enough to get the AFC East. You let me know what you think for the last two games, and if you think either of ours are enough for the AFC East.
So I have a surefire win versus New England. That would bring it to 12-4, and then not a surefire by any means, but a win in Miami, 13-4. The weather, I think, plays a difference. We know what we need how to prepare maybe for kind of on the field, but off the field things, maybe on the sidelines. Given what happened last year, it'll be much more favorable weather. Very meaningful, though. I'm sure that this of course could be for the division in the finale, or maybe it's for a Miami wild card berth. But I think we do win that game, and so actually, I would have us running the table in the division, and so by default, crown us AFC East champions at 13-4.
Yeah, I mean, I could see 13-4 debatably being one of those records where there is a team, maybe it is week 18 and it's 12-4 versus 12-4 Dolphins Bills. It's gonna be a good division, but there's the schedule. We'll talk more about it obviously each week, but we just wanted to go over it quick, go over what stood out. what do you guys think? Let us know down below what you guys think. What do you guys think the record's going to be? Which games do you think will be those trap games? Which games do you think they'll pull off maybe an upset? You'd like to say it maybe against Cincy or Kansas City or Philly, whoever. Let us know down below what you guys who actually also let us know who did a better job predicting them. That will be something that we'll love to see. So just let us know down below. But we're going to get in real quick. Obviously went a lot over time on that one, but it's the schedule, right? We got to spend time on it. We're just going to talk about the NHL draft, lottery draft real quick. Obviously, the Sabres weren't huge into it because they were a little bit better this year, right? They almost made the playoffs this year. Isn't that crazy? But the number one overall pick, Connor Bedard, right? It's easily going to be him. That's who everybody was fighting for all year. And it goes to the Chicago Blackhawks, right? So he's Chicago Blackhawks first overall, Anaheim Ducks second, Columbus Blue Jackets third. The Sharks are fourth, Montreal's fifth, Arizona, Philly, then Washington, Detroit, St. Louis, Vancouver, Arizona. Buffalo comes in at 13, Pittsburgh 14, and then Nashville and Calgary are 15, 16. So obviously some changes, not too many, right? The Sabres stayed at 13. So one, I'm going to ask you just straight up, does staying at 13 mean a lot to the Sabres, or is it just one of those things where, I mean, they're making the right moves. To me, they're making the right moves. That pick, yeah, it would have been great to jump, but at this point, they already got draft picks. They should be set, even if they don't take someone at 13.
Yeah, I would agree. It's what you came into it expecting if everything went the way that the numbers would show, and it was that way for us. Um, so yeah, I don't think it's well, it really isn't a surprise because it's the way that it would have been had it been NFL style, where there isn't a ping pong lottery, if that's what they still use these days. It would have just been where you finished, and that was the case. But it should be a testament to our progress that we've made. I think something that isn't being talked about enough, at least from what I've seen, is we had a winning record this season, 42-40. We won more games than we lost this season. I think that's really impressive given where we were. So that's what I would have to summarize kind of where we fell as.
Yeah, I mean, it is nice to be able, I think a lot of people will agree with that, is that it's nice to be able to say that they're going in the right direction. Because for me, I've always loved hockey, but up until probably last season, it was just too tough to watch. Like, they were not a good team from, I mean, they obviously had Eichel, they had Reinhart, they had certain guys that were good. But it just seems like whether it was coaching or the bottom two lines or goaltending or defense, it just couldn't put it all together. Now it seems like they're starting to put it all together. It's nice to see, but they end up at 13. I'm guessing, I mean, I'm hoping defenseman. I think you're probably hoping the same thing, defensive prospect, if they do take someone there. That's something that we'll get into down the road once it gets close to the draft, specific prospects, all that. But Buffalo's at 13. But the big story, right? Number one overall, Chicago Blackhawks, Connor Bedard, another generational. I know that word, people get upset because that word's thrown around a lot. But when a guy's that good, I'm hearing a lot of things. He's an Austin Matthews type, right? And maybe not McDavid, because McDavid is something we can also get into down the road. But I know he's, to me, the most skilled player to ever play the game of hockey. Obviously, there's other guys like Gretzky and Ovechkin's maybe the greatest goal scorer, maybe. But Chicago, they just had Patty Kane, just traded him this past trade deadline, and now right back at it. They get the number one overall pick, franchise guy, right away. How do you feel about it? Who do you wish would have had it, and who are you glad didn't?
So I really do not like to see it personally. I'm kind of a big supporter of seeing teams that have never won before be put in the best position to win. Not saying that it was an automatic cup being awarded to whoever got Bedard, but Chicago has experienced plenty of success. They have 3 cups in their since the one versus the Flyers, the one versus the Bruins, and the one versus the Lightning. So I was not interested in seeing them be set up for more success anytime soon. I think that I was hoping they'd kind of have to realize what it meant to be on the bottom basement level of the league. So unfortunate to see from my perspective. I was pulling for San Jose or Arizona. I know Arizona was maybe not at the absolute bottom there, but I really would, for teams that were, I was hoping San Jose would grab him because I'm always been a fan of the Sharks. I love the teal personally. You have Logan Couture. noted Bills fan. Really like Eric Carlson. You can't not like him. I don't know why you wouldn't. So I wanted them to be able to add a generational addition there. Arizona would have been great. I really like. I'm a big fan of the uniform. Now I know that's not the most important thing to be liking about a hockey team, but I wanted to see some success for them too, as they haven't really experienced much of it in their past. I know the greatest finish for them was the Western Conference Finals versus the Kings the year that they went ahead and beat the Devils in the Cup. And so however, I was very glad that an organization like Montreal didn't grab him, as it would have meant the Sabres playing him 3 to 4 times a season. Wouldn't have minded necessarily if Columbus got him. However, I'm happy that he will be in the West. There's a consolation prize that you can kind of look at, because it means only twice a year, unless the Cup for the Sabres. So, and then you got to feel for the Ducks too. How about that? Second in the Crosby year, and now second in the Bedard year. Just tough luck there.
Yeah, I mean, I was for me when it comes to the Blackhawks, at least. I mean, I'm not as disappointed as I think a lot of people are. Um, Obviously, not the team I would have said 100%. Yeah, I really wanted him to go there. Um, but I mean, I will say, obviously, the only reason that I don't love it is not even more so the fact that they have been winning a lot recently, like, or not recently, but like past years with Patrick Kane and everybody. It's more obviously that story that came out about just the way that they handled a lot of internal stuff with their organization and how it's run. So that's really the way. Like I saw they got fined what $2 million, I believe, for that whole thing, and they I think it was 48 hours after the pick was announced that they got the first overall pick. They sold a $1.9 million in
Big deposits.
yeah. So it's like, all right, that whole entire fine just went out the window because they got gifted Connor Bedard, right? So it kind of just sucks in that way. But I will say that again, it could be worse teams. Like for me, Columbus, Montreal did not want to see him go there. Arizona, I wouldn't have minded. I'm glad it wasn't Philly. That was another team. Philly, Detroit did not want him in Detroit. Um, but a team that I did kind of want that would have taken a little bit to jump is Vancouver, because I believe he is from Vancouver. That would have just been a cool story. And I do like the Canucks. I like just they're kind of a quieter team, as in their fan base isn't really super loud, as in they're talking a lot. They're a very understanding fan base. So I like the Canucks. I would have wanted them. Washington might be a bit of a controversial take that I would have liked to see him in Washington. I would have loved to see at least him with a year with Alex Ovechkin. But the main team I would have loved to see him go to is Anaheim. I would have loved to see him and Zegras tear it up for Anaheim. And then San Jose was another team that I would have been fine with. So a lot of teams I would have been fine with. Chicago was kind of in the middle of okay, it's whatever. But just glad Columbus, Montreal, Philadelphia, and Detroit did not get Bedard. So there's the draft lottery. We'll obviously talk more as it goes on, just about what things could happen on draft day. What we could see. Obviously, we'll talk about the Sabres offseason a little bit when it gets more towards the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll talk about the playoffs a little bit here and there. But yeah, so there's the draft lottery. Any last thoughts on the draft lottery?
Not a ton. I guess not as bad as it could have been, but still not overall pleased extremely with it. But we'll see how it works out come June.
Yeah. Um, Before we end, like we said, we do want to talk a little bit of history of Buffalo sports. I'm going to start this one because I know you have one that happened on this day. But I'm going to talk about a game that happened in 1992, actually. 1992, the Bills had just lost 2 games in a row. They were 4-2. They were playing Monday Night Football against the New York Jets. It's the last time the Bills played Monday Night Football against the Jets. 31 years ago. 31 years ago it's been since the Bills and Jets played on Monday Night Football. Obviously, they played other primetime games. They played each other obviously 2 times a year every year. But it was a weird game a little bit when it comes to a slow start for the Bills. Everybody thought, oh, here we go. It's going to be 4-3. It's not going to end well. The Jets going into this game were 1-5. So bad versus a team that just made it to the Super Bowl last year, lost, but made it to the Super Bowl last year. With a few minutes remaining, Thurman Thomas. They're down 20-17. Thurman Thomas catches a pass from Jim Kelly for the score. Ends up being the game winner, 24-20. Bills do move to 5-2. It was It was an outdoor game. It was 46 degrees, which is October 26th. Which actually the Bills are playing a October 26th Thursday night game, I believe, against the Bucks is this year. So we'll have another primetime game 31 years after this game. But yeah, it was a 9 o'clock start too. That's also the other thing I wanted to point out. 9 o'clock start, not an 8:30 start, not 8:15. 9 o'clock start at Giant Stadium. I mean, it was one of those games where I saw somebody commented because I tweeted that out today that they had um, won this game, and this game was the last time they played on Thursday Night Football. And somebody had commented saying that they did think that if they lost this game, everything was going to fall apart, right? Everything was going to fall apart because they had just lost the week 2 weeks before that. But it was a come from behind victory. Ended up pulling it out. At one point, they were up 14-6. Then they lost the lead to go down 20-17. Came back and won it 24-20. Thurman Thomas, by the way, had himself a game. He had 21 rushes for 142 yards. So he had 142 on the ground and then another 22 in the air with the receiving touchdown. So overall, 24 touches for 164 yards and a touchdown. A lot of people would have really wished he was on his fantasy team that day. And yeah, I mean, that just shows exactly what Thurman Thomas was all about, right? A lot of us, I mean, we unfortunately weren't able to see him playing live, but we've obviously seen videos. But Thurman Thomas led him to the victory that day to go to 5-2.
Very interesting stuff. And yes, I don't know exactly when fantasy football came to be, but that sounds like some paper and pencil style if it was around back then. And also 9 o'clock, that is unheard of for an Eastern Coast team because that's not like, okay, 9 o'clock somewhere, 6 o'clock somewhere else. That's 9 o'clock flat here. Well, 6 o'clock in California, of course, but for where it's being played, that is, might I say, crazy and wild.
Yeah.
So on my side of things, pretty interesting stuff. On this day in 1984, a very familiar movie to those in Buffalo and really across the sports film scene. The Natural uh, was the film that was released in theaters, and that was filmed at the Rock Pile, starring Robert Redford. Of course, was the main character there. I know I'm a big fan of that movie. You'll go back to the 20s with some of that culture, speakeasies and the flappers and whatnot. I'm a big fan of that film, so that was pretty cool to find out. And then another one more recently was that in 2017, Jason Botterill was hired to be our next GM. So we know how that worked out. Not as ideal as maybe we wished it had been, but it's nice to see where we are now with Kevin Adams at the helm. And so that's only a mere 6 years ago. So we've really made quite some progress, as mentioned before. So neat stuff here on May 11th in our city's sports history.
I will say, I do want to point out that some people, I'm not one of them, but I know a lot of people that are Jason Botterill defenders because he did make the Tage Thompson trade. I'm not 100% sure if he made. I don't think he did not make the Levi trade. That was too late. That was Kevin Adams, but he did make that trade. So he made that trade for Tage Thompson, technically, even though there are reports that said that he did not want Tage Thompson. He wanted Robert Thomas or one other player from St. Louis that I'm blanking on, who still would have been a great pickup, right? Would have been, but I think a lot of Sabres fans are happy that Tage Thompson is a Buffalo Sabre. So we can thank him for that, even though it might not have been intentional, might not have been the guy that he wanted. But they did bring in Tage Thompson for Ryan O'Reilly, who is now on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we all know how that's going now, but hopefully it can end, I believe, tonight, right? Is it tonight that they play?
I believe that would be actually tomorrow is the Leafs Panthers.
Tomorrow. So tomorrow could potentially see that end up ending for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But a lot of different stuff happening on this day, a lot of different history that just is connected to this day now with the schedule coming out and now the Jets and Bills being told they're going to be playing week 1 Monday Night Football. So it should be a fun one. I mean, I will say final thoughts on the schedule for me. Not the biggest fan of it overall. I think it's a tough schedule. I'm not a big fan of the only two 1 o'clock games. But I will say I do like some of the primetime games that they're going to be on. I love that the Giants are coming here on prime time. And I do like the end of the season push, right? So, ups and downs every year. You're not going to be 100% happy every year with the schedule. So, any last thoughts on the schedule? And then we will see everybody next week.
Yeah, I would agree. I would have liked to see some changes made. I mentioned earlier, would have liked to see different week for Philadelphia. Also, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. You have three 8 o'clock or 8:15 or later starts in a row, and then 4:25 kickoffs in a row. That's going to be an adjustment, no doubt there. And also, at least for me, maybe a little on the personal side, it'll be the first year where I'm not a student, so I'm not working on a school schedule for all these games. So it's probably not going to be working in my favor necessarily with such late starts there. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm sure of course, I'll be up for the task. But yeah, that's kind of how I would review it. Looking forward to getting to some home games. I always like to try to get to maybe 1 or 2 away games. I'm thinking about marking down Washington as one, just given the date and time, and then maybe New England to make that a double duty there. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in. Let us know down below comments, concerns, what you guys would like to see us talk about, everything like that. Like, comment, subscribe. I mean, we're here built in Buffalo, right? Be sure to follow our Twitters and Instagrams. We'll put them down below in the description as well. But yeah, first ever episode of Bills or Buffalo Sports Banter. Gonna get things rolling, right? We'll get different topics, different things going here. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed. And Hunter, any last words?
Nothing more than let's go Buffalo, and I can't wait for what is next on our city sports scene.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening.